Hello and welcome to Northern Ireland's first ever ethnic minority business podcast. I am your host Ruchira Rangaprasad, and this podcast has been brought to you by EMEEN. EMEEN is the largest national network of ethnic minority professionals from all across Northern Ireland that promotes entrepreneurship and employment. This podcast has been proudly sponsored by the British Business Bank and powered by Inclusive Entrepreneurship NI. Our sponsor, British Business Bank, is a government-owned economic development bank. Set up 10 years ago in 2014, its core mission is to drive sustainable growth and prosperity across UK to help transition to a net zero economy by improving access to finance for smaller businesses. This strive to break down barriers and help unlock potential, ensuring that people in smaller businesses have the same access to finance, no matter who they are or where in the UK they may be. We are delighted to have British Business Bank's Senior Manager for Northern Ireland, Susan McCain, from the bank's UK network team to tell us a bit more.
At British Business Bank, we really want to help unlock the potential, and we work every day to help both increase awareness and understanding around accessing finance, but also to ensure that smaller businesses are able to access that finance no matter who they are or wherever they are in the UK. So people and communities are at the centre of our work on diversity and inclusion, and through our funds, our programmes and initiatives like the podcast and events, we want to help break down those barriers and ensure that talented entrepreneurs have access to finance regardless of their geography, their social background, gender, ethnicity, disability or age. So backgrounds, businesses and journeys may differ, but there are similarities in the themes that are coming through in the podcast, from understanding the finance types out there, building that confidence to take that next step, how impactful building connections can be, and having those early conversations, and of course having that resilience. So it's a real heartfelt thanks to our amazing entrepreneurs for sharing their entrepreneurial journeys and their experiences of accessing finance to start up and grow their business here in Northern Ireland. I'm forever in awe of the entrepreneurial talent we have here in Northern Ireland. I know they will all be an inspiration to so many others on their entrepreneurial journeys, and they also inspire me to continue helping to break down those barriers. So whether I'm devising an event or developing a new initiative, they're always built on the foundation of diversity and inclusivity.
Today with us, we have a very special guest. She's someone I personally look up to. She's been an inspiration for women, for entrepreneurs, for Indian women like me, and I'm just so excited to have her here in the podcast today. We have Dr. Pragya Sharma with us, the founder of Granlab. Well, Pragya, I would love to hear it from you. Can you tell us, more about yourself, the journey, everything about Granlab?
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for Steve and Susan and British Business Bank for hosting this podcast. Hello, I'm Dr. Pragya Sharma, and I was born and raised in Delhi, India, and that is where I started my journey. I finished my A-levels and then I went on to do biochemistry honours at Delhi University, which is one of the best institutes to study in India. And then thereon, moving forward, I went and did my degree in medicine, and I specialised in medical biochemistry. Moving forward, I really wanted to do a PhD in States, and then I was just waiting for a very long time to get the answer. And that's when somebody told me that applying to UK was free of cost, and applied to several PhDs across England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, and I got so many acceptance. And that's when I came to Belfast to do my PhD as a structural biochemist. So for a very long time, I had been working on developing novel drug targets for different vaccines. So that has been my journey.
Wow, you've really had quite the journey, going from India to UK. I'm sure that's been amazing. But can you give us a high-level overview of Granlab? Especially, can you tell us more about your steroid-free medications? What does that mean? And, why has this been the focus for Granlab?
Yes. As I said, I was doing my medicine back in India, and that is exactly when my grandmother was suffering from debilitating symptoms of psoriasis for a very long time. My grandfather had passed away, and she started smoking, and all those stressing factors that can trigger an autoimmune condition like psoriasis. So it can happen at any age. It can happen to both men and women, or any gender at any time, and it really depends on how stressful your environment is. So it's a multifaceted autoimmune disorder, and my grandmother was battling through psoriasis for a very long time, and she had developed related comorbidities, like she had got diabetic foot, she had glaucoma in her eyes, and she was just in a very desperate situation. And that is when she came to me and said, well, you work in a hospital, you should be able to help me. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. But you know how grandparents are, they really push you to do something, they really push you to think beyond you could have ever imagined. And that's when I decided to help my grandmother. And that is why the company is called Granlab, because I was able to help her. So it's an ode to my grandmother, who became my first ever guinea pig for the first ever steroid-free solution. And she has been one of the very lucky few ones who have been asymptomatic for the last 6 years. And that is what prompted me to actually take her story, her clinical study, her piloting as a first ever study subject, and then replicating that procedure with 350 people across the globe in 5 different countries, and they all saw the same results as my grandmother. Now, not all of them are asymptomatic, but that really prompted me to try and clinically validate this product. So I'm talking about 2018, and then when I came to Belfast to do my PhD, it kind of just, PhDs are very, very hard to finish and to start, and then COVID happened, so it took me a while to actually understand and replicate the processes with what happened with my grandmother. So that is the overall journey, and it has been a very long journey. As I said, we are sitting in 2024. So once I finished my experiments in my PhD, I was really desperate to get this product out in the market, and I wasn't going anywhere. So that's when I decided to actually just start pitching.
Wow, you've set the bar really high for all grandkids here. I think, now even my grandparents are going to be like, what are you doing for me? But, I'm sure the journey wasn't easy at start. And, I want to hear more about what did the initial stages of Granlab look like? And, how far along have you come? Like, now, would Granlab be a startup, a scale up? Where do you position yourself?
Yes, so back in 2018, it was just an idea, and we were just piloting with one person, that was my grandmother. In 2019, that pilot pool increased to 10, and in 2023, that pilot pool, we were finishing off our pilot test study with 350 people across 5 different countries. And all last year was when I was actively using we were just testing the products with different people to try and understand if this is the product that we really want to go forward with. And that's it. So from 2018, 2019 to 2023, and then last year was when I actually established the proof of concept for multiple products, one for psoriasis, one for pediatric eczema, and all of that then channeled into 2024 when I just started raising.
Wow, you make the journey sound so easy almost, but I'm sure it had its own difficulties and challenges. And one of the biggest challenges that at least we keep hearing from founders is finance. And I'm sure that first initial bit of finance was a big thing. So can you tell us more about what that initial financing looked like? Where did you get it from? And what did that help you achieve? What push did it give Granlab?
Yes, so as I said, for the longest time, the company has been bootstrapped. So it is all the personal equity, my personal savings, just because I believed in what I was doing so much that I risked every single thing to actually fund that 350 people of clinical trial. It was all done free of cost. So personal finance is what led to the proof of concept, and that's when I started pitching, and that gave me my first check of £3,000 to Women in Business. Then came the second check of £10,000 proof of concept to TechStart. That got the third check of £35,000 female founders, all within a span of 3 months, and that is validation. Like from going from personal equity to grants is the easiest way you can quickly check if this idea is worth exploring. You have to be obsessed with the problem. So I was really obsessed with the problem in a way, working with my grandmother and closely working with all these clinical study participants. So when you say, so that personal finance, because I was so invested in the idea and I could see that it is something that I could really invest my time and my money in. But again, during this process, I've also taken decisions that I should not have taken, or I feel I could have done without them. But in hindsight, I think that they were the right decisions to make. For example, once I finished my experiments for my PhD, I went on to actually start working as a patent attorney, which is very weird when you think about it, but most people don't know that to be a patent lawyer, to be a patent attorney, you need to be from one of these STEM subjects. So that is how I earned all the money, used that knowledge, and then bootstrapped the company again through the finances. So I was writing my PhD, working as a patent attorney, and pitching for Granlab, and using my personal savings to get that proof of concept, moving.
That sounds very busy and very inspiring. Wow, I can't even imagine how packed your life would have looked like.
It was one of the hardest periods of my life. Honestly, if I think about it, I just don't want to think about it. It was very, very, very hard, and I would not take away that balancing these 3 things all together is one of the hardest things that I had ever done in my life.
I can't even imagine. And plus, this is a great segue into my next question that I'm curious about, is that at that point you were relying on personal savings and personal money and things like that. Then at what point did you realize that, okay, now I should start looking at external finance? And you did touch upon grants a little bit, but did you look at debt, equity, different kinds of external finances? And for someone even like me who doesn't know much about external finance, how did you conclude that this is the kind of external finance that I want to go for? Like, what influenced that decision, and how did you just approach external finance as a whole?
So if you are building a business or a startup in 2024, I think the first thing you should be doing is that you should look for anything that will not take your equity, but give you a validation and will bring you closer to your customer. So quick, dirty, really, if you have a hypothesis, which is the problem, and you quickly want to reach a solution, is this hypothesis going to work, yes or no? So the cheapest, most effective method is to use your own finance, and then look out for grants, which would be, so for example, as I said, so moving on to the journey, I got the Female Founders Grant, so the third grant in a span of 6 months, and then Invest in I grants, innovation vouchers, Queen's, iCure, Innovate UK grants. So all these grants really, really helped progress and validate and give me that market discovery side of things. So if you're building something today, be obsessed with the problem, go for personal savings till the time you can, and then apply for grants, because grant, essentially you're not giving anything away, you're just still trying and testing the hypothesis that you have. And until you don't test that hypothesis in the real market with real customers, there is no point giving the equity away or giving your intellectual assets away to an investor, which will then, the investors only come at a higher level when you're ready, when you have some sort of attraction. So deciding that was fairly easy, because that's the easiest step to do, is write a grant. It is not. It is very hard, but it is easier than going and asking money from an investor.
But Pragya, even with like grants and external finances and things like that, there's still always like that it factor of, oh, will I get it? Will I not get it? But even with bodies like British Business Bank that helps you, secure startup loans and like more straightforward ways of financing. Have you found like that process of securing these easier types of finance complicated? Because I've heard a lot that it is a very complicated process to secure any kind of finance at all. So can you tell me a little bit more about, did you face these challenges, especially, applications is like a biggest challenge, like the applications are so long and things like that. So did you face any challenges like that?
No, you're absolutely correct. So when you think about writing a grant, it is not something that you do in a day or a week. week or a month. It actually takes a couple of months of planning before you actually submit in an application, because whenever you submit a grant application, you are again obsessing about the problem, the solution, the customers, what segments of market do they work in, and you also need to obtain quotes for the work that you would be doing with the funder's money. For example, if you go and apply for a proof of concept grant, you need to tell the funder where that £10,000 or that 5,000 pot of money is going to be spent. And if you do not have a clear vision in your head, that money is of no use. So you kind of have, so if you are applying for a grant, you have to prepare months and months in advance, because some might require a video, some might require a business plan, some might require a pitch deck. So there are multiple ways. So the best thing is do a thorough research on what that grant is for. Read the instructions, attend the webinars that people have, around them, and follow the plan, and just do that months in advance, and also have someone who can actually review your plan. So for example, if you're applying for an innovation voucher in Invest in I, read the documents thoroughly, ask people who have successfully secured the grant, reach them out on LinkedIn, get in touch with Invest in I, get in touch with people who have done this before to actually get those tips and tricks, because there's a certain language that you have to use in the grant, and that doesn't come easy to everybody. You have to be very commercially minded, but also very R&D focused if you were to apply for UK government grants, or grants that are funded by scientific bodies. Because I've had a fair experience with the PhD writing and all of that, I think it was a bit easier, but I would not say. But I still remember writing my first ever grant. It was dreadful, because everything happens on the last minute. So you kind of have to be very ready that you might not be able to hand in this grant application till 1 minute before the application closes. It can be as tight as this one. And I can remember at least 3 grants that I submitted at the last dot, not because I wasn't ready to submit, just because sometimes, your internet doesn't work, the quotations don't come in place, you're waiting on someone to get back to you. So plan ahead before you apply. And with one of my latest grants, I did not sleep the entire night to submit that particular grant, and I had been working on that grant for months. This is the reality of grant application, and that is why you kind of have to seek, once you outgrow grants, you kind of have to seek that private equity, you have to seek that VC funding, or you have to go to an investor, because yes, getting equity-free grants can bring you to a point from 0 to 1, but if you were to go and scale, that is where the private money comes into play.
That's really interesting, because I feel like, even with grants, it's so easy for people to come forward and say, here's 10K, but then how do I use that 10K? What do I do with that 10K? Even how to get like an other 10K, I think is something that people don't discuss enough of. And that's something I'm curious to hear about is, did you get support outside of like your grants? Like, was there support with applications? Did, somebody tell you that, look at IP, look at different things? Did you get that kind of support outside? And I do know that, you've had a connection with British Business Bank, and you've spoken to the CEO as well. Did connections like that also matter? Like, what kind of support did you get outside of your grants, and why is that important?
So to be very honest with you, the support that you really get is the support you ask for. So nobody will come and tell you that, this is what is available. You kind of have to do your own research. I remember spending hours and hours on LinkedIn to find out what grant types are there, what kind of different grants can I apply, who do I actually get in touch with. For example, I'll give you a very nice example of actually British Business Bank itself. So I've had so many part-time jobs in my time in Northern Ireland, right? And they're all very well paid, nice scientific or lectureship positions. So in 2019, I applied for a lectureship position in NWRC, which is in Derry, Londonderry. And all of a sudden I saw, when you're so desperate for 500, 200, £1,000, and you should go and apply for every grant you see, because that makes you practice. So I applied. I was like, oh my God, something is happening in NWRC. I should get this grant. And I got in touch with Alistair Cameron, and he heads the entrepreneurship sort of things there. And I was like, you know what, I'm an alumni. I used to lecture in NWRC. I'm still on the register. Can I come and pitch? And he was like, oh yes, of course, come down and pitch. And that is when I pitched, and I won that £1,000. It was instrumental in my journey. And that's when I met Susan McCann. And when judges are asking you questions, in one of the feedback she said, does your product work on animals? I was like, what? Do animals have psoriasis, Susan? She's like, yes, my dog has psoriasis. I was like, oh, well, you can always try. And fast forward 1 year, I am sitting in my market discovery funded by Innovate UK. I am attending the London Vet Show, and I get a testimony saying that the product has worked for her dog, Scooter. So yes, these connections that you foster today might not help you then and there, but over a span of maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years is when you can actually start seeing the benefit of fostering those relationships. Yes, the connections really, really help you get to a certain point, but it's all your hard work. You kind of have to be very worthy of using that connection, because you can't just go asking people favors. You also have to return those favors. So be very mindful of the help that you're seeking, but don't be afraid of seeking help. And doesn't matter if you get no, you get 1,000 no's, you get 1,000,000 no's, you will always get a no, but doesn't matter. You're always looking for that one yes, and that is it.
True. I think at the end of the day, we're all humans. And
Exactly.
That, humans are willing to help each other. It's just whether we ask or get that kind of opportunity or not. But, another thing that I really want to understand is you've mentioned this earlier on as well, that you've had like phases. You started off with initial, bootstrapping, and then you went and found equity-free grants, and then now you're going the equity route. Like, how do you know like how to scale the business, and how do you know what kind of financing to pick like as your business grows? Like what do you look at when you're expanding your business, and what does that higher bit of finance look like, and how did you come up with that conclusion that this is what I need to go for now?
So the best way is to actually window shop. When before you buy an expensive piece of garment or an expensive piece of jewelry, you like to try and tease and see if that is the best jewelry for you. It's exactly same for raising money for your company. Not every pot of money is the right for you as a founder and as a startup. So you kind of have to go and look which is the best pot of money and who aligns with the mission and vision of my company. For example, going through the grant writing process gave me the validation to then go and ask money to the private investors. And now it's just so much competition nowadays to get VC money, and people are kind of staring away because you kind of have to prove many points before you get that money, and you don't want a lot of money that can actually lead to a demise of a startup, because you don't want to scale too fast. You want the business to be sustainable. So when you're looking for sustainability, you're looking for something to grow slowly and not rapidly. You kind of look for another sort of money, which is private equity, which is angel investors, people who really believe in your vision and your mission and are ready to support you on that journey. So you kind of have to understand as a founder, do I want to go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, or do I want to go from 0 to 10, 0 to 100, 0 to 50? And am I making a business to sell? Am I making a business to be in this business and pass it on to my children? Am I in this business to just quickly make the money and get out? So you kind of have to understand as a founder which is the right path for yourself, and that's how you attract the right investment to your business. Now, I don't want to, so before I can scale, I need to pilot, because what I am making as a pharmaceutical company, a biotechnology company that will eventually pioneer steroid-free. So I cannot just go from 0 to 1,000 in 2 years. It is 0 to 100 to 500 to 900 and then 1,000. So I have to be very sustainable on how I raise. So that is something the founder needs to decide in themselves. What is their vision for the company, and you raise accordingly.
But you as a founder might know what you require best in terms of financing, but then how do you also make that decision as to whether the finance provider is the one that's right for you? Like, at what stage did you maybe know that, okay, now I need to take a loan, and this is the best body that I can take a loan from, or this is the best body that I can take a grant from? What do you sort of, what is that due diligence process that you almost look at to be like, okay, this is where I can go for finance, this is where I should be taking finance from, and what does that research look like?
So it's, as I said, it's window shopping. So you kind of meet So you just kind of meet a lot of people, and then you try to get sense what companies have these people invested in and how far are they in their journey. Are they successful as businesses? Yes. Do you want to be there where they are sitting? If the answer is yes, you go and pursue those people, or pursue those grants, or pursue that private equity or startup loans, if that may be. That is not the route. Loan is not the route that I took. So I went from grants to raising private investment, and have raised successfully raised my pre-seed round. But so you have to do your due diligence too. It's not about, so there's a huge amount of money in the world, but not every pot of money is the right money for you. So that process requires time, it requires patience, you will come up with a lot of rejections, and you always have to see the portfolio of that person who is investing into you, or the company, or the VC, or the fund that is investing into you. If they have been operating for the last 20 years, see what their successful companies, how far have they been on this path? Do you want to replicate that? If the answer is yes, you go and do that. And sometimes you kind of just have to suss people out and see if that is their best intention. It is something that you learn whilst you play the game, and you just have to play the game. So you have to understand that, and due diligence, you literally can Google every single thing in today's day and time. Make those contacts that you can ask those information from. You reach out to the founders that they've invested in and see what their experiences have been like. Have their experiences been good, bad, neutral? And then, try to take that money. Don't rush to take that money, because the longer you delay in taking investors' money, the more power and control you would have in what you are doing. And that, to me as a founder, is very important. The autonomy is very important. Yes, building a team is very important. Yes, raising is very important. So just don't get flooded by, oh, I need to go for every pitch round. I need to go for every grant application. No, cherry pick, and then, give the best shot to that grant, or that investor, or that VC, or that whatever pool that you're raising from, and then just go for it and leave the rest to God, or just let it be, and then always ask for feedback.
So, Pragya, you've obviously walked us through the processes of securing these different types of finance, and definitely the struggles you've had with it. But what are some achievements that these big chunks of finance have brought in? Did they help with research advancements? Did they help with new hires? Did they help with equipment? What are some big achievements that you will give yourself a pat on the back for that has come through these finances?
Yeah, sure. So the biggest would be that we have secured R&D lab and the expertise to finalize product formulation. We have completed, we'll complete our clinical trials and prove Granlab's efficacy furthermore down the line. We have legal assistance in protecting all our intellectual assets, which is so important given the space that we work in. Financial assistance to prepare a business plan, pitch decks, and all of that for future fundraise, because fundraising is never over. Then access to our funders networks. That's one of the biggest. People you associate yourself with, they would open doors for you that you do not even know existed. So having that access to your funders network, and then going ahead and seeking that industry expertise, because now you have proven point A, B, and C. I think all these things that's where the company has taken the advantage from all these big chunks of money.
Well, Pragya, you've obviously done a phenomenal job making the whole journey sound so easy and seamless, but I'm sure it wasn't that way. Can you walk us through, did you have any low points throughout your entrepreneurial journey? What did those low points look like? What did challenges look like? And, what pushed you to overcome them? What pushed you to wake up and be like, I'm going to make Granlab a success?
Yeah, well, this is something that I personally, as a founder, I do not talk about the struggles a lot, because I don't want to put other people off from the struggle, because I think everybody should do their own struggle and see if this is the right fit for them. And there are some founders who are very black and white about the struggle. We can't sleep, we have kids to manage, there's just a lot of struggles involved. I just personally stay away from mentioning all my struggles, but then yes, there have been tremendous amounts of low points. There have been days where I've spent crying in the bed, I don't want to work. There have been days where I felt that I am not meant for this. There have been days where I've stayed awake nights to write grant applications and finish a PhD as well. There have been days where I was like, why did I not get this stupid thing? Because I applied with all my heart, And there are days when people don't treat you well as well. There are days when you face biases and preconceived notions that people might have against you or towards you just because how you look, how you talk, and maybe you don't belong here. So there are a lot of challenges that you face, and I faced all of them. Anything that you can think in your head, yes, that challenge has been there. And the biggest thing that pushes me to take that next step in this journey is, I always see, I'm obsessed with my customers. I'm obsessed with people that use my products. And every single message or card or a thank you or a testimony, I just go back to those messages, those lovely, beautiful messages that I get from my clients who use the product and are free, people texting, oh, I can finally go on my first date. I have never dated in my life. I can finally hug my child. The child is not crying. I finally got that one night full of sleep that I haven't had since I've had this baby, just because the baby has eczema. So messages like that, and I've had, and I can count those bad days because those weak moments happen every single day. Every single day you're juggling the thought, and then, then somebody would come like, why do you not just do a job? And then you're like, oh, frick's sake, why again? Like, you're just trying to pull yourself up, you're trying to push yourself so hard. Not every day is a good day. I would say most days in entrepreneurship are learning days. I would not call them bad days. So there would be 364 learning days, and one day is a successful day, and you're always yearning toward that one successful day because you just love this problem so much and you want to solve this for the world and you want to solve it for yourself.
That is really good. I think that keeps you grounded as well, to just look back and see why you started this and what impact it's having on people. And I feel like even, the journey that you've probably had from the beginning, you probably didn't have it fully alone. You would have had some sort of network or some sort of support system around you. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, where have you been able to develop networks that have helped you professionally move in the right direction, move higher, and what has the impact of these networks been like in your professional development, in Granlab's development?
Yes, so I am not a social media person. I never had a social media before 27th of October 2022. I had 0 followers on LinkedIn. I did not even know how to use Instagram. I have never used Facebook in my life. It sounds so awkward and so weird, but this is the truth. I am not a social media person, and you essentially don't get time in your lab and everything to get onto social media. So I was a consumer of social media and not a content creator. But the day I won my first pitch, I was like, you know what, I'll just go and post about it all. And that is when I started building the professional network. Before that, I had no support. My only cheerleaders were my very close friends and my family. So those were my only cheerleaders. And I'm very new to the Northern Ireland startup ecosystem. So that's when I posted about my journey, winning that pitch competition. And that's when I started getting knack about how do you actually, so I am best on LinkedIn because it's very professional and I know how to talk professionally. And I'm so bad at Instagram because it's all about your personal story and branding and all of that. So I think starting from that day to today, I would have almost 3,500 followers on LinkedIn, and literally every single thing I have done on the journey, getting myself informed, building my network, attending events, meeting Steve, from EMEEN, who has been championing us for I don't know how long, meeting Dr. Satish, and millions, and hundreds of people through that platform. So that started very steadily, but it has really outdone itself for me. So I would say if you have something substantial to share, just go and post about it online and just start building. You have to be very consistent. I have lost my consistency now, but I had been very religious and consistent with my content for the last 1.5 years, and that has opened doors for me that I never knew existed. That has made me contact people, and people contact me, and customers reach me across the borders. So there's a lot of power in social media. Use it to use it to your advantage and be very authentic. I think it has worked for me because I have been consistent and I have been very personal and I've been very authentic, about who I am, and I haven't changed myself superficially, if I were to say. So I think that is the best way to that has really helped me professionally. I can name like hundreds of people in Northern Ireland who have given me that love, support and community. And without the help of these substantial people, I would not have been sitting where I am. So I would thank each and every person who has been on this journey, and especially Northern Irish people, because they have championed for me for a very long time.
I think this does come back to, again, what we touched on earlier about how at the end of the day, humans are humans. We need them. We need that kind of support around us all the time. I feel like even I could never do anything if I didn't have that kind of human support or human validation. And that brings me to my last question that I want to hear from you is, what kind of advice would you like to give for anyone who's starting a business? It could be a student, it could be, maybe even a working mom, could be anybody. What is your advice? Or even, if you could tell us what clicked in your head to be like, okay, now I will start Granlab. Like, what is that advice that you would like to share with people?
See, my personal motivation is something I cannot discuss like at a public platform, but my personal motivation was just so personal. Like, there has to be something dying inside you for you to do something so extraordinary. You have to risk every single thing. I remember I had £9 in my bank account and I was still funding clinical trials. God knows how. So you have to be so obsessed. I know I keep using the word obsessed. So the biggest thing is, I actually have written down the points for this answer. What advice would I give to other people if they were to start a business today? So what I would like to say is, of course, you have to risk every single thing. I'm not asking you to leave your job and, just burn your personal savings. I'm not talking about the drastic measures, but what you can do is test the waters. As I said, cheap, easy testing that you can do by grants. Grants actually take away from the personal finance because it's someone else's money that you can put at risk to see if the answer is yes, though, or maybe. So if the answer is yes, you know where to go. If the answer is maybe, you can redesign the hypothesis. And if the answer is no, that means you need to abandon that hypothesis and pilot towards something else. So the biggest thing I would say is be absolutely honest, try to read the room. I met 700 people last year, online, Zoom, in person. I traveled 5 different countries. So I can just tell, if you are interested in talking to me, yes or no. Don't just start pitching to people, just wait, ask how they are, what's happening in their life before you start selling your idea. And I think learn to soft sell rather than hard sell. Learn to pick up the energy in the room, be very confident. So be very honest, be accountable for what you're doing. I'm very accountable for every step I have taken in Granlab, good or for bad. Be accountable, be highly self-aware. I am not a person who finds it very easy to go and talk to a room full of people, although I can have the best conversation with you one-on-one. So, entering a room and seeing hundreds of people, I still look for familiar faces. So even though I've attended every sort of networking event in Belfast and across the globe, but I still find that very hard. So be self-aware, now I've come to realize that that's my personality and I cannot really change that. It's something that you have to be aware that this is how your working type is and this is what you can do to actually overcome a fear or maybe just change the direction you tackle that problem. And you know what, end of all, just get the work done, Work done is when you do the work, not when you talk about the work, not when you are telling a friend that you will do the work. If you have to apply for that grant, just go and apply. Stop talking about it. Stop taking all the advice that you can ever, just write it. What's the worst can happen? You'll write it bad and you'll fail, you'll not get it. So what? You'll always get a feedback.
So Pragya, we've heard, a lot about your financial journey. It obviously hasn't been easy, but I would also love to know more about what have been like your biggest highlights since last year. What are some things that you definitely want to brag about, and what have been your biggest achievements?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Thank you. I have actually been waiting for that question just to remind people what all has happened. So I'll start with last maybe March or April, and I got to meet Mr. Biden. Oh my God, what an amazing moment to have. He was here in Northern Ireland for 25th agreement, and I got to meet him, shake hands with him, and I was literally sitting in the second line with all the dignitaries, and that was brilliant. And then meeting Mr. Kennedy a couple of times, and we were recently funded by US Embassy through Young Enterprise, and we went to US as a delegation. That was again meeting Mr. Kennedy. Then I'd like to say I was awarded Young Indian British Entrepreneur in House of Lords, which came as a total surprise. That happened through Institute of Directors, and that was an amazing, phenomenal moment. Pitching through various competitions and winning those competitions. Then what else happened? Oh, I have to remember. There's so much has happened. Winning. I have won so many awards, but I actually don't remember. Then there was 30 in the 30 for Northern Ireland. There were so many publications in Belfast Telegraph, which I have now forgotten what they were titled. But yes, having media coverage, a lot of media coverage, 30 in the 30, Biden, Mr. Kennedy, going on these funded trips across the globe. I was in India, I was in Dubai, I was in London, and that was all funded by Innovate UK Market Discovery Journey. Then having finally raised was a huge achievement, and after that I took the first break in the first time in my academic journey, and I went to meet my family. So that was a very huge highlight. I was with them. I've literally returned last week. And so these have been some of the biggest. And then yes, of course, I've forgotten again, the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur of the Year. So working with Tony, and I'm meeting them again next month. So I think those have been some of the biggest achievements that I personally would love to brag about.
Wow, what an honor it's been, Pragya, to sit here and have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
I think some of my biggest takeaways have been that look for cheap, effective methods, get it done, have a clear vision, have thorough research. Support is what you ask for. That has been I think my biggest takeaway. Be obsessed, be honest, and just get work done, like you said. Thank you so much for today, Pragya. I've learned a lot. I'm sure everyone who's watching is also going to be learning a lot. And just thank you for continuing to inspire all of us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Susan. And thank you, British Business Bank, and for having us and giving us an opportunity, because I think it's very hard for founders being a female founder is hard enough, and then being a female founder of color, it adds on to another layer of complexity that most people would not understand, and that's okay. It's on us to make them understand that yes, this has been hard, and I know I haven't talked about my challenges in great depth because I don't want people to stare away from the positives of being an entrepreneur or starting a startup. So just go for it. So thank you so much for having me, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Where can entrepreneurs go to for further information about accessing finance for their business?
So we know that understanding the many types of finance solutions that are out there can be challenging, and compared to even a decade ago, there are now so many alternative finance providers, from invoice finance specialists, crowdfunding and platform lenders. So I'd encourage any entrepreneur to go onto our finance hub. It offers up so much helpful information and guidance to help businesses find the support that they need. We recently launched our Making Business Finance Work For You guide, and you can find that in the hub, and it's designed to help businesses make an informed choice about accessing the right type of finance for their business. Or perhaps they're wanting to get under the bonnet and know more about a particular type of finance, for example, asset finance or angel investment, or maybe they want to understand more about the role that non-executive directors can play, or what is a business accelerator. There's so much information on the hub, so I would encourage everybody to have a look.
Can you tell us a bit more about startup loans?
Sure. Recognising that it can be challenging to get funding to help fuel your startup, the bank introduced the Startup Loans Programme back in 2012, and these are government-backed personal loans for business purposes. So entrepreneurs can borrow from £500 right up to £25,000 with a fixed interest rate of 6%, and up to 4 partners in the business can each avail of these loans. So the loan is one part, but they also come with pre- and post-loan support. So helping you prepare to make your application, and then on receipt of a loan, the startups can also avail of 12 months of mentoring, access to our Learning with Startup loans in partnership with Open University, and lots of other online support. Since launching the programme, over £1 billion of startup loans have supported over 100,000 entrepreneurs right across the UK, and with 40% of those going to female founders and actually 20% going to entrepreneurs from ethnic minority backgrounds. So the bank works with a network of business support partners right across the UK to deliver startup loans, and it's their business advisors who provide that critical support to applicants, so helping them prepare their business plans and their cash flow forecasts. And our partner here in Northern Ireland is Enterprise Northern Ireland, and you can visit the Startup Loans website to find out some more information.
These podcasts have been endorsed by Inclusive Entrepreneurship Northern Ireland. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Inclusive Entrepreneurship Northern Ireland was a group that was formed following a report published by the bank in 2020. The report was called Alone Together, Entrepreneurship and Diversity in the UK, and it was really looking at the effects that ethnicity, economic background, gender and place have on entrepreneurial opportunities and outcomes. IENI, as I call it, itself is made up of a diverse group of individuals and organisations who are all really passionate about helping to improve and shape our support ecosystem, and in doing so helping to create a more inclusive and diverse community. We all meet regularly and we work together, from building our collective knowledge of best practices and sharing resources to encourage and help others through our Inclusive Entrepreneurship NI page, LinkedIn page. So right through to building a series of Intro to Finance webinars where we did a lot of jargon busting with lots of wonderful guest speakers, and they're actually sitting on the Inclusive Entrepreneurship NI's YouTube page. So it's really wonderful to collaborate with everyone in driving really impactful initiatives through Inclusive Entrepreneurship NI, and we're just very proud to be collaborating with EMEEN on these podcasts.